everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm Nikki, and today's video is going to be 12 quick and easy recipes that I've been enjoying lately. Some of these were recently in my last What I Eat in a Week video that I shared, but these are going to be the detailed recipes about how I made each meal, but keeping it super simple, which really helps me to stay on track with my 70-pound weight loss and just maintaining that and feeling good while nourishing my body, getting lots of protein, fiber, all those things that I try to prioritize. So I'll be talking through all 12 recipes. I'll have them typed out in the description below, and if you enjoy this video, please go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. I'll also have the WeightWatchers points and nutrition info in the description, and I hope that you guys find this helpful. So let's go ahead and get started. The first recipe we're starting with today is a version of sesame noodles using the Thai wheat noodles from Trader Joe's. So you can definitely use a different option. These are just my favorite. But I'm first starting out by making the ground chicken that I'm going to be using in these sesame noodles. So I just spray the pan with some nonstick spray and start cooking the pound of ground chicken, which is 0 points on WeightWatchers. While the meat is cooking, I start getting the vegetables chopped up. So I've got a red bell pepper here, a good amount of mushrooms, and then I'm also going to be adding some pea pods. I like to get the meat into small bite-sized pieces, so I just use my meat masher here once it's pretty much done cooking, and I break it down into smaller pieces using it. I push the meat to the side, and I've got some toasted sesame oil, which adds such good flavor to this dish. Then I'm adding in the vegetables. I realized I definitely should have used a bigger pan for this, but I was making it work. The vegetables start to get a little bit smaller as they cook, so I just continue stirring them around on medium to high heat. Once I cook the vegetables for about 7 minutes, just mixing them consistently, then I combine them with the cooked ground chicken. I season the meat and veggies with a little bit of garlic salt and some onion powder. And I forgot to show it, but I added a splash of soy sauce as well, and I just continue cooking this for a couple more minutes, then I add in the Thai wheat noodles. These come individually packaged, so to make a serving of 3 portions, I use 2 packages. It's 8 points for one entire pack on WeightWatchers, but I pretty much just cover them with the meat and veggies to soften them up and cook them just for a couple minutes. I added a little bit more soy sauce, and then once they had softened up, you can see they kind of just break apart like this, so then I just mix them together with the protein and veggies. And because I used the whole pound of meat and 2 packs of noodles, I get 3 servings out of this, so I just put it in an airtight container in the fridge, and it reheats so well. And this is one of those recipes that I've showed a bunch of different times, but there's so many different variations you can do, whether you use shrimp or chicken. For vegetables, you could use cabbage, carrots, onion, even edamame to make it higher in protein and fiber. This next meal is one of my all-time favorites and definitely one of my most eaten meals throughout my weight loss journey. It's another recipe that you can mix up depending on what you have on hand, and I didn't actually have any veggie mix made, so I just cut up some red onion and red bell pepper and I start cooking that in a small pan. While that cooks, I've got 2 La Banderita low-carb tortillas here that I'm just spreading half of a light Laughing Cow on each one. Each tortilla is 1 point on WeightWatchers, and then the light Laughing Cow wedge is also a point. Then here I've got this Lantana black bean hummus, which is one of my all-time favorite hummuses. You can have 2 tablespoons for 1 point, so I just put 1 tablespoon onto each wrap. I've also got some blackened chicken that's cooking in the air fryer, but a lot of the times I'll just use grilled chicken if I have that on hand. But using my kitchen scissors, I just cut the blackened chicken up into smaller pieces onto each tortilla. The peppers and onions are also done cooking, so I divide those up onto each wrap as well. Then I just wrap each tortilla up tightly and I pop them into the air fryer for usually about 7 to 10 minutes until they start getting brown on top. And while they are cooking, I heat up some queso that I'm going to be drizzling on top. I just heated up 2 tablespoons of the queso dip I'm using. Today it's just from a Kroger brand, but you can use whatever queso you have. Usually they are around 1 to 2 points for the serving. Once I drizzle the melted cheese, I also drizzle some Taco Bell mild sauce. Again, if you like it spicier, you can do hot or fiery sauce, but I prefer the mild, and that is it. Next up is another staple recipe on my weight loss journey, and that is 2-ingredient dough pizza. And usually lately I do 2-ingredient dough pizza bakes, but today I'm going to be rolling this out and making like a thin crust pizza with it. I make the dough by mixing together 1 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, and a cup of non-fat plain Greek yogurt, and then some seasoning of my choice. I usually like to choose seasonings that are garlicky and buttery. They add really good flavor to the crust. I prefer to just put on some food safe gloves and mix the dough together until it forms, but you could also even use a KitchenAid mixer or something like that if you prefer. And today I'm actually making a double batch of dough here, so the extra dough I'll just use to make some flatbread 2-ingredient dough pitas. But I just weigh the entire portion of dough on my food scale and then I divide it into equal portions for the pizzas and the pita. Then to get the dough nice and flat, I just actually use a fondant roller here. So if you just have like a mini rolling pin, or you could even flatten it out with your hands like I am, I just find it's a little bit easier to use the roller. And while I've been making the dough, my oven's been preheating to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, so I'm just going to put this on a baking sheet and pop it in the oven for about 10 minutes to par bake. Then I'm just making the sauce by using a can of tomato paste with a good amount of water. I just mix it until it makes the consistency that I want, and I also add some different seasonings into this. The seasonings that I added to the sauce today were a roasted garlic and herb and a garlic parmesan, as well as a little bit of garlic salt. So once I have that made and the dough has baked for 10 minutes, I flip them over and start adding the toppings. So first I spread out some of the sauce just using a spoon. I actually had some leftover grilled pepper and onion, so I'm using that on the pizzas today, as well as some mushrooms, which is always one of my favorite toppings on pizza. My favorite cheese to use for these pizzas is definitely the light mozzarella shredded cheese from Trader Joe's, so I'm just using a serving of that on each pizza, which is only 2 points on WeightWatchers. I also added just 1 point of the Trader Joe's 3-cheese blend, and then I'm topping it with a point of turkey pepperoni. I top each pizza with just a sprinkle of garlic salt, and then I pop them back in the oven, which is still at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And then I bake them for another 20-25 minutes or so, just until the cheese starts to brown and the crust is done. This is another one of those recipes that I just change up depending what I have on hand. Sometimes I'll use turkey sausage for the meat, and then I always have some different vegetable options on hand as well. The next thing that I'm making is a nice big plate of apple nachos. I've been going back and forth between Cosmic Crisp and Honey Crisp apples. Today I've got a Honey Crisp, but I just slice it into small pieces. The thinner you slice them, the more little apple nachos you get, so I try to get as many as I can, and then I just lay them out on a plate like this. Once I get the apples laid out, I like to drizzle them with some type of peanut butter, so today I'm just using the regular peanut butter from Trader Joe's. I like this peanut butter specifically for apple nachos because it's more on the runny side, so it drizzles really nicely, especially when I put it in an icing bag like this. I like to add a little crunch to these, so I crumble up 2 of these almond butter cookies from Trader Joe's, which are 2 points. Then I top it with some whipped cream, which is 0, and some sprinkles that I never really track, but the dogs wanted to pop in and say hi, and then that is my finished plate of apple nachos. Sometimes I like to chop up peanuts or even add some like granola or cereal or even chocolate chips to the top of these, but it's nice to be able to just mix them up to whatever I have the taste for. Starting with this next recipe, I've got these turkey burgers from Trader Joe's that are 0 points on WeightWatchers, so I just heated up a pan, sprayed it with some nonstick spray, and started cooking them. I sprinkled some of this garlic seasoning onto each one, flip them over, and add a little bit more seasoning. Once those are done cooking, I start getting the rest of the rice bowl together, so I've got a base of jasmine rice for 5 points, which is about 3/4 cup of cooked rice. I usually weigh it out using my food scale, and it's about 130 grams. Then I had some veggie mix that I also added to the rice, and I just popped that in the microwave to heat it up. So while the rice and veggie mix are heating up in the microwave, I chop up the 2 turkey burgers that I'm going to be adding, as well as some pickles. Once the rice comes out of the microwave, I add the turkey burgers and pickles, and then I've got this spinach and kale Greek yogurt dip, which you can have up to 5 tablespoons for 1 point on WeightWatchers. And then I topped it with a 1/2 ounce or 1 point of feta cheese. This is how it looks when it's done. I like to mix it all together. There's enough sauce that it makes it nice and creamy and everything blends nice and well. I love ordering breakfast skillets when I go out to brunch places, and I usually like to get some type of like taco skillet where it comes with chorizo and jalapeno peppers. And I was craving a lightened up version of that, so I start by cooking some of these diced potatoes. It's just the brand Simply Potatoes, and they're 0 points on WeightWatchers. I season them and continue to cook them for about 7 to 10 minutes, and then I'm getting the eggs ready to scramble that I'll add on top. And I'm just using 2 eggs for this skillet today because I'm also going to be adding some ground taco meat. And I'm using the taco meat in place of the normal chorizo, which is a little bit higher in points. So I've got a decent amount of that I just add on there, which is 0 points, and it adds a good amount of protein to the bowl. I add a serving of light shredded mozzarella cheese, which is actually the only ingredient I need to track for this bowl. Everything else is 0 points. But then, just like the one I like to get at the restaurants, I top it with some Cholula hot sauce and some jalapeno peppers. This had a nice kick to it, and all mixed together, the ground turkey taco meat really did work well as a substitute for chorizo. This next meal is a quick little snack plate that I threw together. So I've got one of those 2-ingredient dough pitas that I made earlier, which is 4 points on WeightWatchers. I spread some of my favorite mustard, which is an Arizona Heat mustard. They have a similar one at Walmart that's the Great Value brand, but that's 0 points and it adds a lot of flavor. On the pita, I add some boar's head lunch meat, which is 0 points, and then I top it with a slice of thin sliced provolone cheese for a point. I pop that in the air fryer, and then the rest of my snack plate consists of 2 hard-boiled eggs, some grapes, some mini pickles, and then a light Baby Bell cheese, which is 2 points on WeightWatchers. These flavors all go so well together. It's a nice filling snack plate that's enjoyable to just kind of pick at. And shout out to Marjan who got me hooked on these gherkin pickles. The next quick and easy meal I'm making is a pasta using hummus as the sauce. So I'm starting by roasting up some green beans here. They were really big, so I just used my kitchen scissors to cut them up into smaller pieces. Then I spray them with some nonstick spray and add some different seasonings to them before I pop them in the oven to roast them. I usually preheat it to 375 and cook these for 15 minutes or so. Then I've got my griddle heating up to cook some chicken breast that I had marinating. The seasoning packet that I used this time was Zesty Herb, so I get the chicken cooking and I've also got some water boiling for the pasta. For this meal, I'm using the Barilla Protein Plus pasta. The chicken only takes a few minutes on each side, so I just continue to flip it and check on it until it is fully cooked. Once the pasta is cooked, I do strain it, but I leave a little bit of pasta water in and I mix it with the black bean hummus that I'm using today. It's not too thick, but the pasta water does help to thin it out a little and it makes it the perfect consistency for a sauce. Then on top of the pasta, I add the roasted green beans and the cooked chicken breast. And sometimes it's nice because I already have the chicken breast prepped. Tonight was just one of those nights I had to actually make it, but I also have used blackened chicken and it works really well with this. But then I top it with a little freshly shredded Parmesan cheese, and that is the complete dish. This next meal is a super quick one. I keep mentioning that I've been craving hard-boiled eggs and egg salad specifically, so today I'm just making the egg salad and how I usually make it. I like to use this egg slicer to get it into nice chopped pieces, and then I just use my food scale to weigh out the ingredients I'll be mixing in. So to the 3 hard-boiled eggs, I add a serving of the Coop's mustard, 1 tablespoon of light mayonnaise, and then I also added 20 grams of cottage cheese. I never used to add the cottage cheese, but I find that it does give it some nice texture, it adds some extra protein, and without adding any extra points. Then I also mix in some salt, pepper, and a good amount of dill. And this made a good amount of egg salad, so I decided to make it an open-faced sandwich. I feel like every time I eat egg salad, it just oozes out the sides, so this is a much easier way to eat it, and it honestly feels like you have more. So I just evenly divide it onto 2 slices of sourdough bread that I popped in the toaster. Then, to make it a more filling and complete meal, I also add a side of grapes, as well as a side of dried edamame, which helps to add some protein and fiber, and it's a nice crunchy snack on the side. Barbecue mac and cheese is one of my all-time favorite meals, and that's what I'm making today using some of this carb diem pasta. So I've got the water boiling for that. Then I had some leftover ground chicken that I had cooked earlier, so I add some Sweet Baby Ray's no sugar added barbecue sauce and just mix it in till it's coated. Once the pasta's cooked, I leave a little bit of pasta water in and spray it with some butter flavored nonstick spray. I just do a little bit to add that buttery flavor. Then I've got a light Laughing Cow wedge that I cut up, as well as a thin slice of provolone cheese. Then to add some creaminess, I also add in 1 tablespoon of queso. I'm also adding some garlic salt and chili cheese seasoning. And I just mix that together. It makes a nice creamy mac and cheese. I just pour that into the bowl I'll be using, and then I heated up the ground chicken with barbecue sauce in the microwave to add on top. I've got some leftover veggie mix, which is pepper, onion, and zucchini, so I add some of that on top as well, and then some crispy fried onions. And I just do 1 tablespoon of the crispy fried onions for 1 point on WeightWatchers. I drizzle a little bit more of that no sugar added Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce, and then that is my complete bowl of barbecue chicken mac and cheese. The next meal I'm making, I'm going to be using this ground turkey. So I just spray a pan with some nonstick spray and start cooking the ground meat. I start flipping it over once it starts getting brown, and then again, like I did before, I like to use my meat masher to get nice smaller pieces of the ground meat. I wanted to prep this so that I could use it for some other meals as well, so I try to keep the seasoning a little more generic that will go with different meals. So I add a little bit of onion powder, some garlic salt, and a little bit of this Sofrito seasoning from Trader Joe's. This really adds good flavor to the meat. I continue to cook this for a couple more minutes, and then I've got my oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit for the flatbread I'm going to be making. For this, I'm using a Trader Joe's flatbread, which is 4 points on WeightWatchers, and I'm spreading some spinach and kale Greek yogurt dip onto it. Then I've still got some of that veggie mix, which is the pepper, onion, and zucchini, so I add a good amount on top of the flatbread as well. I add a good amount of the ground turkey, which will help to make this more filling and add some protein, and then I'm also sprinkling on some feta cheese. I bake it in the oven for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then I cut it into 4 slices and kind of eat it like a pizza, but that is the entire flatbread. For the last recipe I'm making, I'm using some of these simply diced potatoes, which are 0 points on WeightWatchers. I spray the pan and the potatoes with some nonstick spray, and then I add some different seasonings. I've got a roasted veggie seasoning, some garlic salt. Then I'm adding in a good amount of the leftover cooked turkey meat that I had made. And since it was already cooked, I added in once the potatoes were pretty much done, and I just cook it until it's pretty much heated through. I sprinkle some light 3 cheese blend onto the potatoes and meat, and then I'm cutting up some of those gherkin pickles, which are 0 points. Then I wanted a sauce on this, so I just used 1 point of the Bolthouse Fire Chili Ranch. I drizzled that on to complete this bowl, which came out to only 4 points on WeightWatchers.